Meanwhile, Matthias massacres the Temple Knights. The Light Temple has nothing they possess that able to stand up against him. At last, the last two members that survived aside from Lucius are in Matthias' hands. Now, all that's left is Lucius. With the fire magic, Matthias bombards him. Fortunately, that same attack is no use against the overpriced shield he possesses. A moment later, he uses his light magic to counter, but it is still too slow as Matthias already dashed behind him. In an instant, he clawed Lucius's back twice, and Matthias knows that his reaction speed is noticeably slower, signify that he is extremely fatigued. The more time passes, the more acclimated Matthias is with the demonic power. Moreover, his recovery speed is ridiculous while Lucius keeps accumulating damage when they are exchanging blows. As Lucius swings his spear, Matthias grabs it, and from point-blank range, he summons his fire magic again. That blasts Lucius, smashing him into the wall. Right now, both Arno and Leona who have been giving him support are dead. He has no choice but to use his saint power. However, he knows that he might end up in a bigger trouble if he uses that power. On the other hand, Matthias wants to end their fight, when suddenly the fireball he summoned disappears. It surprised him that a feather coated with a light power penetrated his fireball and annihilated it. In the end, Lucius uses his saint power to summon his future self, as he asks Lucius with how much of Lucius's lifespan will he offer for summoning that power. Lucius offers 1 month of his life, but the power seems to want half a year worth of his life to defeat the demonification Matthias. So he accepts it. Lucius gets powered up with all of the light he will ever need to defeat a mere demonification. At that moment, Matthias, the demon, feels afraid of the power Lucius possesses, as he supposedly is no match for Matthias, yet, with a flick of Lucius's hand, he split open Matthias' chest. In the end, Lucius barrages him with the light's beam, decimating the demonification Matthias. Looking at his dying supposedly best friend, Lucius explained that it's a saint-exclusive skill called Glimpse of Glory. He borrows power from the angel that he become in the future in exchange for his lifespan. It's a closely guarded secret of the temple that only the power and portion of cardinals know. That is why average lifespan of a saint is around 30 years, because the temple always forced the saint into dangerous places for its own benefit. The position of saint is a brutal one, as they are nothing but jesters being played around by the temple. He then asks Matthias whether something like that, what he greeted over to the point that he betrayed his friend and abandoned everything. Matthias laughs, saying that Lucius was not the only jester in that matter. He adds that the only difference between them is that the goddess of light acknowledged Lucius, but not Matthias. In the end, Matthias dissipated into dust, as his hatred towards the goddess remains in his heart. The next thing Lucius does is to heal his dying priests. He is bumped with the fact that from all of the temple's party member, only the 3 of them is alive. He says that the raid is over and orders them to go back. Meanwhile, the effect of the strong luck helps Zephyr to fend off the dragon's attack. He expresses that there's no need for her to intervene just because he spaced out for a bit. He knows that he is inside of his own consciousness, it is not reality. What most important in there is his spirit. All he needs to do is to recall who he was, his future self from his last life. The armor and power he possesses are coming back to him, and in an instant he jumps off towards the dragon, punching Kaiserus's eyes as he summons his sword. He expresses how that is not the first time he has to fight the evil desire of a dragon, including the one in his previous life. Kaiserus's evil's desire is the 5th that he has to conquer. He expresses how annoying the dragons are, telling the Kaiserus if he is dead, he should just let himself be absorbed, adding that as the dragons go out of their way to test people to see if they are worthy of the dragon powers. With full confidence, he tells the dragon that he will beat the shit out of him, and do as Zephyr says. Kaiserus says that the only top-notch thing about Zephyr is his mouth, asking him to come. With full power, Zephyr faced the supposedly strongest dragon in the world. Meanwhile, Ned awakes as he is confused with what in the world is going on right now in front of his face. He sees Eurydica is busy with doing something to Zephyr, and he seems to be unconscious. He thinks that might be his chance to attack the boss, but as he tries to stand up, his body doesn't want to move because he experiences mana freezing. Eurydica tells him that he shouldn't get up yet, and suggesting him to get some rest. Before that, she also cast a magic on him that makes him throws up. It was the branded worm that he swallowed, and Eurydica commends him, knowing that the worm is in its larval state. Signify that Ned has never used the branded worm's power, and he managed to obtain that level of strength purely through hard work. As he's starting to lose conscious again, she tells him that he will recover after a long nap. 3 days later, somewhere else in the dungeon, Lucius, Arno and Leona is lost because the dungeon's layout had changed. Arno wants to leave the place immediately, but Lucius has another plan. He wants to look for the Stake of Faith, as he thinks that's the only way they can escape in time, knowing that the two slaves, Zephyr and Ned, were acting strange in the raid. Lucius assumes that they are different factions from the demon god cult, and they might be after the clearing rights to the dungeon. Now, he must find them and asks for the escape method. As they move toward the boss room, the guard knight welcomes them with his attacks. Lucius still manages to hold his ground, as the other two is wondering how can the Stake of Faith is inside the boss room while the gatekeeper is alive. Lucius is having a hard time dealing with the gatekeeper. He can only use Glimpse of Glory once a week, and he used it already against Matthias. He thoughts that it's finally his ends, as he feels afraid for not being able to see his family again. But suddenly Zephyr opens up the gate. He witnesses how Lucius pinned down by the massive gatekeeper. Zephyr expresses how perfect the timing is, and because he was being asked for a favor earlier, now he needs to help the saint. So he uses the dragon tongue magic, telling the gatekeeper to bow down. That in turn, smashing the gatekeeper's head into the ground, and surprise Lucius with what just happened in front of him. He is so surprised that the gatekeeper, the monster that he can't fight on his own, is obeying the person that he knows of as a slave. Now, Zephyr is counting down on how effective his dragon power is, and at the 10th second, the gatekeeper breaks free. He evades its attack as he knows that in order to prevent the dragon heart from going berserk due to imbalance between his power and the dragon's power, the dragon heart's capacity is restricted to 1%. Of course, even if there are restrictions, that is still the power of dragon. Though the gatekeeper pick up the sword, it's called Graham. It's a weapon made for the purpose of killing the strongest dragon. So it's a bad matchup for Zephyr, but he has his another power as well. The Sword of Light, given by the Goddess of Light. She lifted the restrictions on using the divine weapon with the request to save her saint, Lucius. With that, he summons the divine sword's power to kill the gatekeeper, as he's saying thank you to the formerly dragon slayer, Georgius, for his hard work keeping the peace. Lucius knows that what Zephyr has is the divine artifact of legends, that only a few chosen priests known of, the Sword of Light. Now he also knows that he was wrong, and Zephyr is not the demon god worshipper, rather he feels the Goddess of Light's presence from Zephyr. Not only that, Lucius also feels something similar to when he met the gold dragon, an undefiable pressure. As Zephyr turns around, Lucius and the temple's priests kneeling in front of him, greeting him as the Exalted One. It is explained that the battle between Zephyr and Kaiserus within his consciousness lasted 3 days. In the end, Kaiserus acknowledges his power, but that doesn't mean Kaiserus trusts him, so Kaiserus will continue to watch Zephyr from within. When he opened his eyes, Zephyr finds that Ned is unconscious and Eurydica had crumbled into ash. She also left a keepsakes for Zephyr, a crystal of magic, that he will have to give to Eurydica's descendant and master key. That will allow Zephyr to move around easily in the tomb. Lucius then removes the slave brand on Zephyr and Ned. With that, Zephyr also asks Lucius to take care of the debts as well, and of course Lucius is more than willing to do so. Now he also offers to help Zephyr more as currently he thoughts that Zephyr is on their side, while Ned is thinking that it won't be too bad to be able to join arms with the saint, as he knows himself that Saint Lucius is the ultimate weapon raised by the temple through the money they plunder from people like Ned. Lucius is simply someone that Ned cannot bring himself to have good feelings for. For now, he thinks that he will use anything he can, as well as Zephyr. Then, Lucius thinks that it's not a good place to talk, and offer them to go back first, but Zephyr reveals that their dogfight only just began. He informs that the third parish of the Temple of Light must already have become a nest of demon god worshippers by now, due to the forces that the demon god worshipper Cardinal Aldean brought, and the twin knights, two of the strongest in the continent. Even with Zephyr, who obtained the dragon heart, his strength is still constrained, so they need an ample preparation. Especially against Aldean, the situation won't simply resolve with just a battle. Zephyr then takes out the master key. He changes the layout of the dungeon to reveal the treasure room. He offers them to gear up first, as Eurydica's treasure room that no one has able to enter for 1,000 years. Inside, there are so many treasure that able to fill up a country, even high-grade treasures that protected inside a crystal barrier. Even though they don't know how to take out the treasure, Zephyr simply takes them out with the master key. Zephyr also finds an elixir that able to help them to identify the demon god worshippers. That makes him happy as things are starting to work out in his favor. Not only that, the party of 5 also get geared up as well, with them taking equipment that suits themselves best. While Ned, one supposedly Zephyr's teacher, taking a crow cape, dusk tunic, this bracelet, and sword of mirage, while Zephyr takes Graham for himself, and dragon set armor that makes him also fully geared up. Now, they discuss the plan to take Aldian, where the tricky things to deal with is that Aldian is a high-ranked noble and all Lucius knows is that they don't have a way to identify the demon god worshippers. That's when Zephyr reveals the vial to the party as long as Lucius able to identify them as the saint, the son of the goddess of the light. People will listen to him. Meanwhile, Alfonso gets controlled by Aldia, and it's true that he is already succeeding in taking over the parish temple. Lucius's wife, Claudia, and their kid can only watch as she only knows that Aldian is a priest and wonders why would he do something like that. Aldian asks whether she thinks that he had showed her something amusing. Not only that, he also explains that his branded worm is different from the others. As he takes it out, his branded worm has a special ability called Hive, which already evolved into a queen, and able to give birth to larvae that allows him to brainwash and control any human who ingests it, just like the Reverend in front of him. And with that, he asks her to persuade Lucius, yet as she asks him what she needs to persuade Lucius for, that makes her kid cry. His name is Marius, and Aldian intends to use his hive to him, saying that it's little bug friend as a present for him. But Claudia fend his hand off, throwing the bugs away from the kid. That also reveals the other bugs that make off Aldian's body. As he gets enraged with her, a knight arrives reporting that there's a trouble in the temple, adding that Lucius is outside. Aldian is surprised to learn that Lucius is back that soon, so he looks outside. What he witnesses is a lot of his knights get knocked out flat by the trio, Lucius, Arno, and Leona. He greets him, as it's been a while after they meet, and Aldian is shouting why would a saint attack the priests of his own parish. Right now, Lucius is already using the potion of scrutiny, and when he add a drop of that on his eyes, he will be able to see the branded worms within the demon god worshipper's body. Witnessing how powerful Aldian Worm is, the Saint of Light, Lucius proclaims to arrest Aldian for acts of heresy, adding that the sins of deceiving the Temple of Light is a heavy weight to bear, and telling Aldian that now he will pay for it. That enrages him, laughing and calling the saint his impertinent brat. Alfonso appears. As of now, he is controlled by Aldian, asking whether Lucius has evidence to accuse the Cardinal of heresy. Which of course Lucius notices that in his uncle's body is not a branded worm, but Aldian's ability that Zephyr spoke of. But Zephyr prohibit to reveals the potions of scrutiny, as it will stir a lot of trouble that might get Lucius killed, and he suggests to get surefire evidence. Eureka Tombs is a great labyrinth that covers an extremely wide underground area. That range actually extends as far as directly underneath the third parish temple. And if they move to the right location and dig through the ground to get outside, they will arrive at the base that Matthias used, where the demon god worshippers held their assemblies. That's when they found the evidence in the abandoned mansion, and that's what Lucius bring to arrest Aldian. That's are the letters that Alden exchanged with Matthias, his plot to seize the dragon heart, and his acts of worship to the demon god, all are recorded in those letters. Though there are instructions to burn immediately after reading, it seems that Matthias hold on to them in the case that he would get betrayed. In the end, Aldian laughs knowing that Lucius that thorough with investigating him, or whether Matthias feels some sort of fidelity toward Lucius and blurt out everything. He then reveals it, as the executive of the demon cult, rank 11 of the demon god worshippers, Aldian. But for now, Lucius still unable to do anything as he also has Claudia and their kid hostage. And he asks Lucius whether he would ingest the special worm Aldian has, with powerful brainwashed ability, or Claudia should. Without hesitation, Lucius offers to eat it and tells him not to lay a hand on her and his kid. But in the end, Aldian decides to feed it to Claudia anyway, where suddenly Ned appears, stabs him from behind. It turns out that the mist bracelet able to hide his presence, that makes the twin knight fails to detect him. In turn, his sword of mirage able to hurt Aldian. His first priority is to save the kid and Claudia, so Ned grabs her intending to take her away. But the Gold Knight stood in his way, as if at that moment is his first time facing the older of the twin knights, and he is incredible because he possesses the power of one of the continent's 10 strongest. To cover for Ned, Lucius uses his spear to distract Aldian and his knights, that leaving the Gold Knight no choice but to defend his lord. That makes an opening for Ned to take on the Silver Knight, and for Claudia to snatch back her kid. Now Aldian is confused whether the Eastern one deceived him, to ruin his plan and him into a corner by pretending to cooperate. And all he thinks now is to get away, as he lost his hostage, and if Lucius uses his glimpse of glory, he can easily kill Aldian. The Gold Knight gets down from the tower, preparing to face the Saint as the Silver Knight is helping Aldian to run away. It is then revealed that he is Castor, rank 20 of the demon god worshipper, will go face to face with Lucius, the first son of light. From all over the town, the people is prohibited from entering, because the knights is in the middle of training. Even the mining slave are able to see the smokes that comes out from the temple from afar. Arno and Leona goes against the lower rank knights and priests that's swarming into their way, but with their newly attained equipment, they are able to hold their ground quite well, while the Saint and the Gold Knights wreaking havoc in the temple, breaking buildings one after another. Therefore, Lucius is the one that has the upper hand. Castor thoughts on how annoying it is that he has to deal with Lucius' spear, because in a face-off between a sword and a lance is fundamentally more advantageous since it can be used to attack with long range. But it's different with him as he is the 10th strongest knight in the continent. He evades the lance's tip and goes to cut the Saint up. Castor doesn't expect it that Lucius wears a mirror chainmail, which reflects 50% of the damage he received. Lucius counterattacks him as he expresses that he, the Saint, let the twin knight to rose on the rank within the continent, while he barrages Castor with trusses from his extremely overpriced spear, because a divine being such as himself cannot dare to be placed in the rankings of mere humans, as he pushes the Gold Knight into a corner. In the end, Lucius uses a light magic called Judgment, making a massive hole on Castor's stomach. As the Saint lands down, Leona cheers up, calling out to him, thinking that he manages to beat the Gold Knight. But he yells to them not to come closer as his stomach also get hurt, because as he uses his judgment, he received total 7 attacks. Castor heals up with the Worm's ability, saying that he also has reflection ability that reflected around 50 to 60% of the damage from judgment. He claims that he was planning to hold Lucius off until Aldian manages to escape, but now he is enraged and decides to kill Lucius. He dashes toward the Saint, instantly appears behind Lucius. Now, the Saint fails to react to the attack and Castor also uses his maximum power with the help of the worm in his body, shouting that he will send Lucius to his goddess right away. But suddenly, Aldian sent message to Castor, asking him to come to Aldian right away. As he got distracted with the message, Lucius uses Chain Fail and Paralyze that make him unable to evade anymore. Lucius then uses another judgment to him, seemingly that the Saint doesn't care about the reflected damage he might receive after. Somewhere else, it turns out that Zephyr intercepts Aldian escape route while all of chaos that happened in the parish temple. Zephyr tells him to get up, as his beating is not over yet. And that's when Lucius reveals to the Gold Knight that his job was to keep Castor occupied from the start to kill the 3 of Aldian, the Silver, and the Gold Knights, one by one after separating them. Lucius mock him, saying that he sure fell into their trap quite marvelously. That makes the Gold Knight so enraged to him, that looks like his vein is going to burst open.